The Royal Niger Company. How Trade Became Empire. Part 1. The World Before the Company. Before there was a Royal Niger Company. Before there was a British protectorate. Before there was a country called Nigeria, there was the Niger. For centuries, its waterways connected communities, markets, and kingdoms. Goods moved along the rivers. Merchants traveled between distant markets, and wealth flowed toward the coast. But this was not an empty commercial frontier waiting for Europe. Africa already had a trading system.
Across the Niger Delta, powerful trading communities had built networks around the waterways. Boni, Nembe, Kalabari, Opobo, and beyond them, networks stretching deep into the interior. At the heart of this economy were powerful merchant houses. They organized labor. They controlled canoes. They negotiated prices. And they determined who could gain access to particular markets. These were not simply traders. They were economic powers.
Then something changed. The Atlantic slave trade was declining, but European demand for West African commodities was growing. One commodity became particularly valuable: palm oil. Europe's Industrial Revolution created enormous demand for vegetable oils. Palm produce could be transformed into soap, candles, and industrial products. And suddenly, the Niger Delta became even more valuable. European merchants wanted the oil. African merchants controlled much of the trade. And between the two stood the powerful middlemen. European traders could not simply arrive and take what they wanted. They needed access. They needed transport. They needed information. They needed relationships with local authorities. And they needed African merchants who understood the river. The middlemen therefore held enormous bargaining power. They could determine who traded, where they traded, and sometimes at what price. For decades, this system worked through negotiation and competition. But competition created another problem. The Europeans were competing against themselves.
British merchants competed with British merchants. French traders entered the Niger. German interests were expanding across West Africa. And African trading powers remained firmly in the game. Every merchant wanted the best price. Every company wanted the biggest share. And every competitor threatened the profits of the others. Then, in 1877, a British businessman arrived on the Niger. His name was George Taubman Goldie.
Goldie saw the problem differently. He did not see too little trade. He saw too much competition. His solution was simple and ruthless. Combine the companies. Eliminate the competition. Control the trade. In 1879, competing British interests were brought together under the United African Company. The consolidation continued. By 1882, it had become the National African Company. Goldie was building something different from the independent trading companies that came before him. He was building a machine designed to control the Niger. And this is where our story changes. Because Goldie's ambition was no longer simply, how much palm oil can we buy? It was becoming, who controls the trade? And if you control the trade, you can control the routes. If you control the routes, you can influence the markets. And if you control the markets, you begin to influence the political world around them. Trade was beginning to become power. The Royal Niger Company had not yet been created. Britain had not yet taken direct control. And the word Nigeria did not yet describe a unified country. But the foundations were being laid. Not first by soldiers, but by merchants. Not first through conquest, but through commerce.
And at the center of it all stood George Goldie, a man who understood something powerful. The easiest way to control a market is to control the competition. And Goldie was only getting started. Before Britain conquered the Niger with soldiers, Goldie began conquering it with contracts.
If you enjoyed this journey into the business wisdom of ancient Africa, you're in the right place. Here on Ovenjan Bina Iskit, Market Intelligence, we uncover the forgotten trade networks, business systems, market strategies, and entrepreneurial lessons that shaped our continent long before the modern world. If you're passionate about African history, market intelligence, commodity trade, and business storytelling, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an episode. I'd also love to hear from you. What lesson from today's story stood out the most? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you're Igbo, tell us your traditional market day. Eke, Oye, Afor, or Nkwo. Let's celebrate our heritage together. For in-depth market research, business insights, and articles, visit www.ovenjanbinaiskit.com. Until next time, remember this: great civilizations were built on trust. Great businesses are built the same way. I'm Ovenjan Bina Iskit. Build, automate, analyze, succeed.